Hilchos Klei Hamikdash v'ha'ivdim bai, Perek Shishi. The laws of the utensils in the temple, the laws of those who worked in the temple, chapter 6. Good Yom Tif again. Today is the second day of the Yom Tif. Yesterday was the 12th of Tammuz, today is the 13th. They're both part of the holiday for the Friedlicher Rebbe, because what happened was, yesterday he was notified that he's freed, but because it was some kind of legal holiday in Russia, the offices weren't open, they couldn't actually let him out. So today, he actually went free. And so because of that, similar to Yutas Kislev, the liberation of the Alter Rebbe, also there was 2 stages, celebrated in 2 days. First day he got out, second day he actually got home. So Yud Beis Tammuz and Yud Gimel Tammuz is the same thing, it's a 2-day Yom Tif, we don't say Tachanun today either. And all the powers of Geula and redemption are present today for everybody, so whoever needs a redemption and everything that they need should have that redemption right away. Over the last few days, we've been learning about how the Leviim and the Kohanim who served in the Beis Hamikdash were divided into weekly groups. Every week a different group would serve. Today, the Rambam is going to talk about the equivalent of those groups among the regular Jews, the Yisraelim, because there was also 24 groups of special Jews that were directly correlated to the 24 groups of Kohanim and Leviim that served in the temple. And now, today we'll see what their job was. The Rambam introduces their job by presenting a contradiction. Halacha Aleph, I efsher sheyiyeh karboneh shel adam karev. It's impossible that a person's sacrifice should be brought in the Beis Hamikdash v'hu einay oimed al gabav, if he's not standing right by it. That was a law. If you had a sacrifice to bring, you had to stand in the temple right there while it was being brought. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the karbanos hatzibur hin karban shel kol Yisrael. Communal sacrifices are sacrifices of every Jew, and not just on behalf of every Jew. As we saw in one of the earlier books of the Rambam, every Jew actually gave half-shekel coins, which went directly to the fund that would fund these communal sacrifices. So literally, in a way, every single Jew owned part of the communal sacrifice. And of course, it's a logical impossibility that all the Jewish people should stand in the temple courtyard when the sacrifice was brought. First of all, because of space constraints. You can't fit the entire Jewish people into the Azara. Secondly, communal sacrifices were brought every day, twice a day at least. That means everyone will have to live right next to the temple. Every day they have to go in twice a day to watch the sacrifices be brought. So what do? How do we resolve this seeming dichotomy? On the one hand, you have to be there. On the other hand, you can't be there. So, says the Rambam, Lefichach, therefore, Tiknu Nevi'im Arishainim, already in the days of the first prophets, they made an establishment, they made an enactment, Sheyivreru mi Yisrael, that they will choose from among the Jewish people, Ksherim v'yirechet, kosher people, people that feared sin, v'yiyu shluchei kol Yisrael lamed ala karbonis, and they're going to be the agents for all the Jewish people. They're going to stand by the sacrifices on behalf of everybody. They're called the people of the Maimad. Maimad means standing. That's what they did. They stand in the temple on behalf of the Jewish people near the sacrifices. And the early prophets divided them into 24 groups of ma'amodos, like the same number as the watches, the groups of the Kohen and the Levites. Over every group, every Maimad group, there was one man who was appointed over them all. He was called the head of the Maimad. Same way you have when it comes to the Mishmar, the Kohen group or the Levi group, there was one head. The Yisrael group, there was also one head. And what would these people do? What would these Ma'amodes people do? So the Rambam says, Halacha Beis, B'chol Shabbos v'Shabbos, every Shabbos day, Miskabtzin Anshe Maimad Shal Oisa Shabbos. The people of the Maimad of that week would come together. Like the changing of the guards for the Kohanim happened on Shabbos, same would happen for the Levites. If you were in the weekly group and you lived in Yerushalayim or close by, Nichnasin Lamikdash, you would actually go to the Holy Temple. In Mishmar Kahuna Levia Shalesa Shabbos, to be together with the Kohens and the Levites who served that week. If you were chosen, you were part of the weekly group, but you didn't live near Yerushalayim, you were far. When your week would come, They would go to the shul in their place. It's a very interesting Rambam, because many people understand that shuls began as a general concept only after the temple was destroyed. Here it sounds like there was shuls that were coexisting with the temple. And so the common explanation is that this is the second temple time, because in the first temple times, for sure, it's almost clear that there was no shuls at all. Already in the second temple times, it was more common to have other shuls in Israel. And no, this is if you lived far from Yerushalayim, you would go to your shul. So if you were in Tzfas, in the north, and it was your week, you were on the roster, you couldn't travel all the way to Yerushalayim, so you would go into the shul in your place. And you would do the service, we're going to say in a second, there was a special service, what they would do. The service was either done by those who were in the Holy Temple and by those who were in the shuls far away.
And was established after the destruction of the temple.
That's the common understanding. In the Talmud it says that Hashem told Yechezkel HaNavi, I'm going to destroy the temple, you're going to all go out to be exiled, Va'ehi lahem lemikdash ma'at, and I'm going to make mini temples. Talmud says, what's the mini temples? Elu bate knesiyos u bate midrashos. That's the shuls and the study halls that are going to be all around the diaspora. That's going to be in place of the temple. Here, the Rambam seems it's clear that they function simultaneously.
Even in the first days of the Beit Hamikdash.
So this ceremony was definitely done back then. Whether it was done in the shuls, that particular detail probably happened in the second temple. Halacha Gimel. Uma hein oisin elu hamiskabtzin. What would these people do? They gathered together, bein b'Yerushalayim, bein b'batei knesiyos, whether they were doing it in Jerusalem or in the shuls. What was their duty? What was their service? Says the Rambam, first of all, misanin, they would fast pretty much all week. B'sheni b'Shabbos shalahen, u'bashlishi u'b'revi'i u'b'chamishi. The Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of their week, they would fast. By daytime, not by night. Aval be'erev Shabbos lahayu misani, and they wouldn't fast on Friday. Today's Friday, mipnei kvayid Shabbos, because of the honor of Shabbos. Ube'echad b'Shabbos eino misanim, they also didn't fast on Sunday, kadesha layetzu me'eneg Shabbos l'tzoim, so they shouldn't go out from the pleasure of Shabbos right into a fast. So, the middle of the week they would fast. And then, besides for fasting, every day of the week that was their maimad, mispalolin arba tfilos, they would daven 4 prayers. Shachris u'mincha, that's the regular morning and afternoon prayer. U'ne'ilah, the closing prayer, which we do today only on Yom Kippur. But they would do that also on their fast days, their maimad days, towards the end of the day. V'oid meisifin tefillah acheres bein shachris u'mincha, and there was also an additional prayer that was added between Shachris and Mincha, V'hi Yisera Lahen, which was extra for them. We know this today as the Musaf prayer. V'noisin kapeyan hakayanim b'maimad, shalosh pa'amim b'chol yom. Out of the 4 prayer services, the Kohanim who were in the Maimad used to do the Kohen blessing 3 times every day. B'Shachris, u'v'tfila zu ha'yisera u'b'ne'ilah. During the morning prayer, during the Musaf, the extra prayer, and during Ne'ilah, but not during Mincha. Now, what does this mean that the Kohanim would raise their hands? Kohanim didn't seem to be part of the Maimad. It was Jews that were part of the Maimad, right? So the common understanding here is that it means it's referring to the people in the temple, and the Kohanim who were serving in the temple would go to do Birkat Kohanim 3 times during this Maimad process. Or it's a reference to the Kohanim who lived far from Jerusalem. It wasn't their week to serve in the temple. If they were in shul by the Maimad, they would do Birkat Kohanim for those people 3 times a day. The Kaidin b'Sefer Torah, Shleisha Anashim, Shtei Pa'amim b'chol yom. And they would do Torah reading twice a day for 3 men. Today, let's say Monday, Thursday, we call 3 people to the Torah. We only do it once. First of all, only twice a week and only once a day. Here they would do it every day, from Sunday through Friday, twice a day. B'Shachris u'vatfila hashniya shemaisifin, in the morning prayer and in the additional Musaf prayer. Aval b'mincha lehayu kaidin b'Sefer Torah ela al peh, but by the Mincha service they wouldn't read in the Torah scroll. They would recite the passages by heart, kikaidin es Shema, as though they were reading the Shema, but not reading inside from a scroll. V'lo hayu miskabtzin l'tfilas mincha be'erev Shabbos mipnei shehin trudin l'Shabbos. They didn't have to gather together for the Mincha service on Friday because everybody was busy preparing for Shabbos. Halacha hey v'kibutzan l'chol tefillah me'arba tefillas elu. When these Jews would gather for every one of these 4 prayers every day. V'amidasan sham litfila v'litchino lebakasha. And as they stood there to pray and to beseech and to request from Hashem, the likras b'Torah, and to read the Torah, nikra maimed. The totality of that ceremony is called the maimed. Ubameh hayu kaiden. Now, what exactly was the Torah reading? I mean, every week you read the parsha, or if it's a holiday, you read the holiday. But what is the special Torah reading for the ma'amados? So the Rambam says, based on the Mishnah, b'maisa bereshis, they would read the story of creation, because literally, the sacrifices in the temple service held up creation of the world. So we would read the creation. And the way it would work was like this. In the Torah, if you've seen it on Simchat Torah, when we read that first portion of Bereshis, you can see that the story of every day of creation is another paragraph in the Torah. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and then day 7 we have Vayichulu, the beginning of the Kiddush, which we say every Friday night. So the Rambam says they would read the Torah on Sunday to Friday. Every day they would read that day's portion and the next day's portion. B'yom Harishon on Sunday, Koden Bereshis v'Yehirakia. They would read Bereshis and Yehirakia, that there'd be a firmament, that's Monday's creation. So here I just copied from the Torah scroll. You see this is the paragraph of Sunday and Monday. All this was read on Sunday. Basheni, on Monday, they would read Yehirakia v'Yikavu. Yehirakia is the portion of Monday, create the sky, and Yikavu Hamayim, that's what happened on Tuesday, the creation of the water and the dry land and the plants and the vegetation. Bashlishi, on Tuesday, they would read Yikavu v'Yihimairis. They'd read Tuesday and Wednesday, all the water and plant vegetation, and then the planets and the stars. But Revi, on Wednesday, they would read Wednesday and Thursday, Yihimairis v'Yishritzu. Yihimairis is let there be the luminaries, and Yishritzu, let the waters teem, all the fish were created. B'chamishi, on Thursday, they would read Yishritzu v'toitzei aretz, the waters teem, and let the land give forth the animals and the creation of the human being. Pashishi toitzei aretz vayichulu. On Friday was the longest reading. They read the reading of Friday and the reading of Shabbos and vayichulu. Now, how did they divide it? There's 3 aliyahs, you said. So the Rambam says, Parsha Gedola, Koden Oisa Bishnayim. Of the 2, you always saw which is the bigger paragraph. The bigger paragraph was divided in 2. Uktana Koden Oisa Echad, and the smaller one was read by 1. Now this leads to interesting conversation because we have a rule in Torah reading that you can only read 3, that you can minimum read 3 verses at a time. But if you read 3 verses, you have to leave over 3 verses in the paragraph. This first paragraph of Sunday only has 5 verses. How do you divide 5 into 2 aliyahs? As a matter of fact, we have the same question every Rosh Chodesh. On the new month, the first paragraph that we read has 5 verses and we divide it into 2 aliyahs. So what do? We actually read verses 1, 2, and 3 for the first aliyah, then we go back and we read number 3 again. We do 3, 4, and 5. We do this every Rosh Chodesh. So here also they would do this on Sunday. The bigger portion is the first one, it has 5 verses. They would do verses 1, 2, 3 was the first aliyah, 3 again, 4 and 5 was the second aliyah, and then Monday was the third aliyah. Same thing on Monday. On Monday, you do the Tuesday's reading is bigger. So the Monday reading is 1 aliyah, 3 verses, and Tuesday has 5 verses. Again, you do the same thing. Verses 1, 2, and 3 is the second aliyah, 3, 4, and 5 is the third. Once you get to Tuesday, it's already easier because Tuesday's reading is 5 verses, it's smaller. You read it all together. And then Wednesday is 6 verses actually. So you divide it 3 and 3, that's super easy. Same with Wednesday and Thursday, you divide Wednesday in 2, and then Thursday into 1. And Thursday and Friday, again, you do the Thursday, which is a smaller one in 1 aliyah, Friday into 2. And same thing on Friday, you do Friday in 2, and Shabbos is 1. Ushtei parshiyas shekoden shachris, heim shechozrin v'koden eson b'tfilah hashniya b'sefer. The same 2 portions you read in the morning are the same 2 portions you read again during the Musaf prayer in the Torah scroll. The chozrin v'koden eson b'mincha al peh, and you reread it again at mincha time by heart. So basically, every day you did 3 times Torah reading, twice in the scroll, once outside, same readings every time, 3 times. Halacha ches, Shmeinas Yemei Chanukah, on the 8 days of Chanukah, Loi Hayu Anshe Maimed, Oisin Maimed B'Shachris. Whoever was in charge of the Maimed wouldn't do the service during the morning prayer. Why? Because during the morning prayer on Chanukah you say Hallel, and there's a rule that whenever there's Hallel, there's no Maimed. V'chol yom sheyesh by karban musaf, any day which they brought an additional sacrifice, let's say for Rosh Chodesh, or the holidays, lo haya by maimed, lo b'tfilah shniya shalahem v'lei b'mincha. They wouldn't do the maimed service, not during the second prayer time, nor during mincha time, ela b'shachris or b'ne'ilah bilvad, only by the opening prayer in the morning and the closing prayer in the evening. Also, any day which they brought the wood sacrifice, and we'll soon explain what this is. There was no maimed service at the closing service, only in the morning, second prayer, and the third afternoon prayer. Umahu karban ha'etzim, says the Rambam. What's this wood sacrifice that we're referring to? This is a very interesting piece of history. The Rambam says, "Man kavua haya lemishpaches mishpaches." There was set dates for different families, lotzeis la ya'arim, to go out to the forests, lahavi eitzim la ma'aracha, to bring wood for the pyre, the pile of wood on the mizbeach. Basically, there was a time frame when the second temple was just being built that there was no wood in the storage for the mizbeach, and different families came forward and gave their own supply of wood to be used in the Beis Hamikdash. As a reward for that, on that day which they gave the wood originally, their family maintained the rights on that day to bring their own wood, to donate to the Mizbeach and to be used on the altar. On the day that the family, whatever family it was, used to have their right to bring the wood, they used to bring together with the wood voluntary burnt offerings. V'zehu karban ha'etzim. V'zehu karban ha'etzim. And that was the wood sacrifice. This is a very, I know it sounds super simple, but just these words of the Rambam here are super controversial. Most people understand that karban ha'etzim is the actual wood. The wood was the sacrifice. The Rambam says no, they brought oilis, burnt offerings with the wood. That was the karban ha'etzim. And the Rabbi has a whole sikha where he explains what the Rambam sources for this. It's a nuance in the Talmud, and how the Rambam understands that wood itself wouldn't classify as a sacrifice. It's just a hechsher, it's just an accessory to get the sacrifices going, and therefore it wouldn't be enough to make it into the holiday that it was. You had to bring sacrifices with it that were actual sacrifices, and that was the karban ha'etzim. V'haya lahem k'mo yamtiv. Says the Rambam, that day was like a holiday for them. Full-on holiday. They couldn't do eulogies on that day, they couldn't fast on that day, they couldn't do work on that day. V'davar zeh minhag, it was a custom. And the Rambam adds, afilu yachid, even if it was not a family, even if it was an individual, shehisnadev eitzim, oigzarim, b'ma'aracha, who donated wood, or wood logs, like small pieces of wood, for the pile, the wood pile on the altar. And the Rebbe explains that the Rambam over here is referring to, and he also brought oilos, he also brought sacrifices with that wood. He would be forbidden personally to do a eulogy, to fast, to do work. It's a personal holiday. V'davar zeh is also a minhag. This would also be a custom that you could do, a custom both for families and for individuals. They would do this. Back to our point, on a day where there was karban ha'etzim, the maimed, the collective group, would not gather for the final prayer service of the day. Halacha Yud Aleph, Anshe Maimed, people of the Maimed, whoever was participating that week, Asurin milisaper u'milichabes, kol Shabbos shalahen, they cannot take a haircut nor do laundry during their entire week. Dedicated to the temple. No doing laundry or haircuts. Uvachamishim mutarin mipnei kveda Shabbos. On Thursday, they can do it in honor of Shabbos. Umipnei ma osru aleim l'saper u'lechabes. Why did they make this decree? Why not take a haircut? Why not do laundry? Because if you were allowed to do laundry or haircut during that week, they might delay it to that week. And they would enter their week looking unkempt and disheveled. We don't want them to. We want them to come in looking spick and span. And therefore, we want them to take a haircut, do laundry before. So we say, when your week comes, you won't be able to do it. So make sure to do it before so you come into the temple looking wonderful.